What comment was that?
You like it better when I hold the phone up to the microphone.
I always feel like I'm being tested.
Oh, man.
Oh, is this Colin Hay? Men at Work. Yeah.
Yeah.
That voice is unmistakable.
Yeah, that's perfect.
I can't get enough of Colin Hay.
Welcome to this episode of the Cool Dad Shirt Podcast. As a whole, it's just such a wonderful album, and so many of those tracks I feel were just sort of overlooked. And any of Colin Hay's solo stuff is absolutely fabulous.
They peaked in the 80s when they had those very goofy and fun music videos, and you're exactly right. They grabbed just a handful of those and ran with them. But if you dug a little deeper, great songwriting, excellent music production. I mean, that kind of stuff had a real 80s sound about it. But if you ever get the chance to see Colin Hay perform live, it's just is really something to see. Can't recommend it enough.
You had mentioned that a while ago that you saw him, and you said it was fantastic. You said it was a great show.
He made a great appearance on the TV show Scrubs. I don't know if you recall that episode.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, he's
got to go back and check that out.
He's what a great TV show anyway. But he's being wheeled around. He's got his acoustic guitar. And he's sort of just playing the big song "Overkill." By Men at Work. But he's doing it just solo acoustic, and it's just about getting in the doctors' heads. They're way overthinking things, and it's very funny. I can't remember the season or episode, but if you dig for it, Colin Hay on Scrubs is hysterical.
Yeah, I'll look it up. We spoke recently on one of our last shows about some words that I don't like, and sometimes I can't let things go, Rich. I don't know if that's ever happened to you. I don't know if there's anything that you have trouble letting go with.
Sometimes, of course.
I won't beat this to death. There was a couple words that I mentioned on the last episode that I just don't like. Slacks being one of them. Dungarees, I mentioned. We'll get back to slacks in a minute, but another one I would like to add to my running list is ganache. I have no idea what this whole ganache thing is. I've heard it used. Oh, it's a chocolate ganache cake. It's a cake with ganache. I have no idea what ganache is. I just know that I don't like the word ganache.
I also don't know what that means. And likewise, it doesn't have an appealing sound. No. What's that, ganache?
Yeah. Oh. I stepped in ganache.
Is that a pile of ganache? Yeah.
The slacks is like a funny one, too, because you brought up pant, and there's no need for pant to be plural. It's a pant, right? So I don't know what slacks are, but he's a slacker, don't slack off. I'm okay with that usage of slack, but in terms of a clothing article, I'm not a fan of slack. And I questioned, since you had discussed about pant being singular, perhaps people are even using the term slacks wrong. Maybe it's put on a slack to go out. What are you wearing tonight? I'm wearing a slack.
The only thing more absurd.
My pant is in the dry cleaner. I'm wearing a slack tonight. How uncomfortable is that? I feel so uncomfortable. I'm so embarrassed to even say that word.
It's so ridiculous, but you make a brilliant point. I think I'm with you.
Slack, singular, right?
Slack. It should be singular. It's one article. I don't care how many legs you have. Yes. It's a slack. That's right.
Slack, dungarees, and ganache are on my list.
Yeah, and if any of our listeners want to throw their most hated words into the mix, hop on over to Instagram and fire us a DM. We'll definitely bring them up.
Absolutely. Do you get stuck on anything like that?
I historically have. Nothing's coming to mind at the moment. I think as I get older, I'm learning to let go of things a little bit. Yeah. So I'm getting slightly. I know there's some stuff. I'll have to take notes myself, but yeah, there's definitely some things that for some reason they just stick. And truth be told, it is very difficult, by the way, to not use this platform to air a whole bunch of grievances. Things popping. I'm not kidding. All week long, I'm like, "Oh, we're talking about this week," and no, don't be that guy. Just keep it to yourself, man.
Yeah, and I think as we get older, I let a lot more things go, and I joke about some of these words, but I do feel like some are pretty funny. I think more about them. Maybe those are, like you said, just some real dated terms, like dungarees. It's just so dated, but they're kind of funny. And
oh no, one just popped in my head. I got one.
Yeah.
So and I feel bad because it's arguably the United States of America's premier medical research center, Johns Hopkins. Why is there an S at the end of John?
Johns.
Like it's awkward to say. It doesn't make
Yeah.
sense. Have you ever known anybody named Johns? It's
Yeah.
not possessive. There's no apostrophe there. It makes no sense. Yeah, Johns Hopkins. I cringe every time I say the word.
We'll add that to the list. See, here we go. We're up to 4.
Again, strangely plural. I don't know why.
There is something about plurals. So, like, I guess ganache would be plural, right? Because you couldn't have ganaches.
Yeah.
Look at those ganaches. But pants, slacks, and Johns Hopkins.
Well, of course, this swerves right into, depending on our listeners, and I don't know what happens. Some people, as they get older, they like throwing an S on the end of, like, go to Targets or Walmarts or I don't know. Again, is that a possessive? They're actually speaking to the wares that can be found at this company kind of thing, and it's a possessive, like, oh, down, dude, I don't get it. I don't know. That
Yeah.
seems to be age related also. The mysterious S.
Although Big Daddy Sitch from Jersey Shore, he adds S's to everything. He'll say, let's get some foods. And he's young.
That's funny. The other thing I've noticed when I listen back to our podcast, the funny things we say, I actually said stuffs one time. I've listened to it a couple times. We had to write our own stuffs. It just fell out of my mouth. It makes no sense, and I crack up every time I listen to it.
I drop a few of those that don't make any sense either.
And there's always, you got to make the call when podcasting. Does that rise to editing or just let it go?
I let them go a lot of times.
That's a good plan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't overthink it.
No. I don't know if you saw this, and I was surprised. Larry Mullen Jr. is not playing at the U2 residency.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. How can you call yourselves U2? That makes no sense.
Yeah, it was very, very odd to me, especially given the band's longevity and history. Apparently, it's health related, and he's kind of focused on healing himself up and feeling better.
I think we're going to assume they seem like a good bunch of guys who've known each other since high school. I think I'd like to assume that he gave the blessing and just said, listen, guys, just go do it. I got to get through some stuff. Please just, keep the U2 thing going, and I'll catch you on the other side.
Yeah, I believe he did. I believe he was okay with it. I can understand. I guess he's probably in his early 60s, and the physicality of playing the drums definitely wears your body down.
But it does seem a little strange and awkward to have that's such an institution,
Yeah, absolutely.
I asked you earlier in the week if you ever got involved in a completely ridiculous conversation or argument with your young children, because something popped up the other day. I was outside. It's it's early fall here, and a mosquito was going past my ear, and it triggered a memory I had from about 10 or 12 years ago. My daughters were, 11 and 9, 10, 8, something like that. And one of them came home from science class one day and said, yeah, you can't hear the sound of a mosquito. And I said, I definitely can. They're like, nope, you can't. And then the other daughter pops in, Dad, we learned about this in science class. You cannot. I'm like, what are you talking? No, people over age 40 can't hear it. Frequency is gone. And I said, well, I understand hearing loss. Yes, it does happen with age or exposure to other things, but it's not a light. You don't blow out the candles and your hearing goes away. That's not how it works, And for some reason, I couldn't just chuckle and let it go. I was strangely defensive, like, I can hear a mosquito, I was getting angry. That's back when I couldn't let things go.
Yeah, is that part of your birthday celebration? Cake, presents, and then your children hold up a mosquito to your ear and you raise either your right hand or your left hand, like the old school hearing tests, so you can identify which ear it's in?
That's exactly right. And each year we have to check another frequency off the chart as we age.
Ratcheting down the 3K.
So yeah, that's I still chuckle about how strangely defensive I was getting over something so silly.
Yeah, I can understand that. Funny, though, to think every year you celebrate a birthday, your kids will be testing your faculties to see which is starting to fail.
These really have a checklist. Were you just typing on your phone? What are you doing?
Yeah. This year's birthday, it's like a round robin. There's 2 5-pound dumbbells, a bag of garbage, and some high-frequency sounds.
There's a whistle, a tuning fork, a kazoo. What's going on here?
Yeah, don't cut the cake until after the test is completed. That'd be great if all birthdays were celebrated that way. I think about random stuff very often. We have a little Yorkie, and he's super cute. Wouldn't it be like funny if dogs had like thumbs? Because when he lays there on bed and he's kind of gnawing on a bone, he's got it wedged between his paws and in the proper angle. And I thought it would be so much easier if they had a thumb.
Think how different the world would be if dogs had opposing digits.
I thought with evolution, is there a possibility? Maybe.
The dog starts actually grabbing things away from you at that point. Speaking of random thoughts, I had one just before we were getting on this call. I rolled my desk chair over my headphone cable, which I do all the time. And I get to thinking there's a finite number that you. At some point, that's how you kill headphones. And I was thinking that should be a unit of measure. Like when you go and you're searching online and you're looking at a price point, you can see how many times you can roll over the cable before it dies.
Tested 200 office chair rolls.
Exactly. So that was the random thought I had just clicking the button to get in here.
What are you up to? You should make a chart.
What's that?
I don't know.
What am I up to?
Yeah, you should make a chart.
A lot.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Cool Dad Shirt Podcast with Rich and Mike.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram, where you can post a comment or DM us a question. Thanks for listening.
I know you grew up in the Northeast, so you're no stranger to cold weather. And I remember as a kid, the heat being on bare minimum at the house growing up. Waking up on those school mornings was always like freezing, and you would kind of race out of the shower, get clothes on really quick, because it was always, I mean, if it was 68 degrees in the house, it was like warm.
Yes.
And I felt as a kid, it was probably never even higher than 64 in the house. I don't know why, but it was always so cold. I don't know what it was. In terms of like price index and inflation, I don't think oil was that much higher back then than it is now. I just remember the house being so cold. It made me frustrated because my dad, who lives around the corner, calls me up the other day and asked me if I could switch things over and get his heat on. And he wanted me to set it at 73. So his heat is set at 73, and I thought, okay, you know, you're older and whatever, that's your choice. But then he called me back the next day and asked me if I can come back and bump it up another degree or two. And I'm thinking, he's living around the corner from me and wants the heat set on 75. And as a kid, if it was 64 or 66, it was a heat wave in our house.
Where were you the first 20 years of my life when I was freezing as a child?
Exactly. I'm thinking, what happened?
That's funny. Well, I think it's generational. I think our parents coming off, their parents were in the Depression. And of course, that was very, very important back then. Houses have become more efficient. It might be as a ratio slightly. I'm not really sure. But as a society, I think we no longer tolerate that the way our parents and our grandparents did, where you were just bundled up all the time. But it is ironic, yes, to go to parents' home, and it's very toasty.
Oh, I was so mad, Rich. I don't know if you had one of these, but to supplement the heat, and it was very popular back in the 80s. We had, I can't even believe we inhaled this thing, but we had one of those kerosene heaters.
Yes.
Please tell me you didn't have one of those. Did you?
Holy
I think everybody did. And I talk about this with my brother-in-law, Frank, all the time, because the idea of sitting in a house with all your windows sealed shut and a flame burning kerosene in the middle of your living room for heat and just releasing all the fumes and toxins into your house. I don't even know how we have survived this many years.
It is crazy. Kerosene is not that clean, and it's not just burning kerosene. It's also burning oxygen, which you do need to live. And you're right. It was very popular. Again, it was a cheap source of heat, and we definitely had a kerosene heater back in the day.
And the usage of that thing, I mean, talk about a risk. I am surprised. Forget anything that I might have inhaled. I can't even believe the dangers associated with that. Because it would take a while to shut the thing down, we wouldn't even shut it off to refuel it. I'd come marching in from outside with that 5-gallon can
Pouring
of
fuel.
kerosene. I'd put some newspapers down on the floor. I would get that
Also
cheap,
flammable.
yeah, yeah, an accelerator. You need more. You need more accelerants when you're working with flames and kerosene.
Can we
What
soak
else
that
can I
paper?
add? What else can I add? So let me paint a picture for you, Rich. I'm not making this up. This is all true. The kerosene heater in the middle of our living room. My dad laying down on the couch about 4 feet away, smoking cigarettes nonstop. Him calling me in from my bedroom to fill up the kerosene heater because it's running low. I go out, I bring that 5-gallon gas can, I lay the newspapers down. I then take out that little cheesy pump with the orange handle and get that all set up, and then start funneling kerosene into the heater with my dad smoking a cigarette right next to the fuel tank, filling up the kerosene heater while it's still on. And this is a product of the 80s.
You've got two open flames in a closed space while you're
Within
pouring
4
fuel.
feet of each other. Yeah. Yeah. Like, I mean, like, you see those NASCARs pulling the pit. The guy comes in with the can. The car's still running. You know, he pumps in about 40 gallons in that thing. That's what it was like in my living room. In and out real quick. Get the kerosene in there and get it done.
And our kids go mental when the Wi-Fi goes down for 4 minutes.
I know. Ask them to shut a light. They go ballistic. I don't know if you've ever knocked into those things. My parents went out one night and my friend was staying over. We used to play a lot of Nerf basketball, which was a fantastic invention in the 80s as well, maybe the 70s. And I remember that kerosene heater was on one night, and when we were playing Nerf basketball, we banged into it, and it has this automatic shutoff. This metal spring releases, and it chokes out the oxygen from the flame to shut off. It takes several seconds for that to choke out and starve the flame of oxygen and go out. And the entire time while the flame is being drawn of all that oxygen, black smoke comes spewing out of the thing as it sort of dies off. And I remember banging into that thing a couple times as a kid and having this big cloud of black fuel smoke in the middle of the living room.
The house is full of the
Opening
worst
the
type of a
windows.
carcinogen.
Yeah. So I'm glad we're past that type of home heating system.
You just don't see that anymore. I think we decided as a society, let's not do that. I was just outside moments ago, and it's the first week of October is when we're recording this at the moment, and we have people putting up Halloween decorations and stuff like that, and it's pretty awesome. It's great. I wish I would spend more time doing it. It's really low on the priority list, but I always enjoy when neighbors go the extra mile, and it's not just like a blow up or something, but they actually build a scene, you know, and they have like a fence and characters and stuff like that, and they really go the extra mile. But I also got thinking, we are also going crazy as a nation, and I can't explain this, of when we start putting these decorations into stores. You're seeing, you know, after the 4th of July, Halloween stuff going up, Christmas stuff. I was just in Lowe's the other day, Christmas stuff all over the place. It was still very warm this week. My mind is not on Christmas trees quite yet.
No.
Where does it end, Mike?
I don't know.
What happens when the beginning and the ending coincide, and we just...
Halloween seems very big around my neighborhood as well. There's a couple houses that invest a lot of time and money in decorations, and it's a huge attraction. People just gather around for long periods of time in front of the house, just sort of admiring and enjoying all the decorations.
Yeah, and kind of spending some fellowship and hanging out with their neighbors. I think that's a great thing. And, you know, it kind of gets people out of the house, stop staring at your phone, and go have a conversation with your neighbor and enjoy the environment and kids running around. It's classic Americana. I love it.
So are you planning on putting up some decorations yourself there, Rich, or just sort of enjoying what the neighborhood has to offer?
I want to do more, but about all I do is I put some lights up around Christmas time, and that's very modest too. Just that's about the end of that. I like it, but it's not effort I would probably put in. How about things at your place?
Yeah, we do quite a bit of decorating for Halloween. That's always
okay.
It's always a big holiday for us. The whole family enjoys it. It's funny. We start decorating and make adjustments and tweaks and move stuff around till it's time to take it all down.
Continuous improvement over those weeks.
Absolutely. I would probably argue we have more Halloween decorations than Christmas decorations, and we have a lot of Christmas decorations.
Yeah, that's it. I think, is that a new thing? Halloween is really blooming into on the decoration side. I don't know if I missed the boat or people are just getting way more into it now, but it does seem like people are really going over the top with the Halloween stuff.
I think so. I think the last, I don't know, 10 plus years, it's really increased the amount of decorations that I see people put up inside and outside, and the amount of people that sort of participate in Halloween. As a kid, right, you remember the old cheapo costume, plastic mask with the rubber band, and, one size fits all nylon pants.
It cut your face.
The little tie string in the
Yeah,
back. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the rubber band snaps before you get to the second neighbor's house.
Yeah.
I mean, just junk. And there was a handful of decorations. They had, the old cardboard pumpkin that you would recycle and tape to the window every year. And there wasn't a lot as a kid. And some neighbors, would try to put a mask on and sit in a chair in front of their house and scare you, but they didn't offer a lot. But the last many years, like you had mentioned, with lights and animated figures and statues and decorations, exponentially has increased massively.
Yeah, in keeping with the long tradition, in all your years, Mike, how many razor blades did you find in candy bars?
I look every year. I've yet to find one.
Do you remember, was that true where you grew up too? Parents would just go crazy about, I don't know if it was an actual story or an urban legend, but there was always talk, you better check your candy because people are putting syringes and razor blades inside your chocolate bar. And to date, still haven't seen one.
And hopefully that trend will continue, that we don't find any.
Let's stay on that trick. I do remember one neighbor growing up, they kind of avoided all of that. And their whole shtick was you would step in and they had this like coffee table with all these little aluminum foil balls on there. And you just got to pick one. And there's anything from like a dime up to like $5 wadded up inside it. And so like they stayed away from the whole candy thing, but I think everybody got a dime. I'm not really sure. But that was kind of the thing. And people were excited. You went running out, tearing open this aluminum ball, and people had a couple of coins or whatever. And that was just an interesting take. Yeah, they tried to do something different.
I still check to make sure none of the candy's open. That's all. I give it the little squeeze, and if it feels like the wrapper's open and it's not airtight, then those ones I'll take a quick peek at or throw those out. But
yeah, that's good decision making. Yep.
Yeah. When you were around the age of getting some of your first cars, do you remember what kind of stereo you had in it? Was that a big selling point or feature or must-have?
I came to a vehicle very late. I think I was like 22 before I had a car. I was always able to borrow the family car when needed. I bicycled a lot as a young person, but going out, I did have generally access to a family car, so I was kind of stuck with that. My first car I bought, I was sporting the AM/FM cassette that came with the car. I do think I replaced that. And it wasn't like today where you have a wiring harness. You just pop off and put the new thing in with the, Crutchfield gives you the instructions and all this stuff. It just pops right in. It was a major ordeal to disassemble and rewire back in the day. So money was tight in those years. So it wasn't a big deal, but I think I know I upgraded in my first car. Yeah, I definitely did, but I can't remember what it was or just more power or I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
Or what my friend had probably. I have no idea. How about you?
It's nice now that car manufacturers have really improved the car stereo that typically comes with the cars. Most cars have a, pretty nice modern stereo with some good quality speakers that are clear and have some power. But I remember the first few cars I had, they had those junky AM/FM radios, and that was really it. And I remember, ordering some, not super, super high end, definitely some upgraded stereos for my cars. I was thinking recently about some of the first ones. It was enough of a purchase to worry about someone stealing it. You had mentioned the lengths you had to go through to sort of get a harness and a faceplate that would fit the model car based on the opening the existing stereo was in. And there was a lot involved to set these up and get them installed, yet people were stealing them left and right. And there were some companies that came out with these, what they called at the time, anti-theft deterrents. And I remember my first couple ones were in what they called this Benzie box. You would install the whole bracket and frame, and you would take the car stereo, and there would be a plug on one of the sides, and you would slide it into the encasement, and that plug would then connect into the wiring harness that was part of the bracket. And then when you got to your location, you'd flip the little handle and pull the whole thing out and carry it with you. I'd go someplace and then, parking my car, you would pop out your car stereo and walk to your destination with your 5 or 6 pound car stereo in your
Like a lunchbox.
It was the size of, exactly. It was the size of like a pretty good textbook or a lunchbox, and you'd be walking around with it while you got on with your life, so no one would steal the thing. The hot stereos back in the day were like the Blaupunks and the Alpines and some of the Pioneers. It's so exciting just reading about it, even thinking about it to this day. It was such a big deal.
And you'd go through the price point of, do I get more wattage? Do I get more features? Do I get all this stuff? And just the excitement of going through a catalog. But I think later, correct me if I'm wrong, but the evolution that later turned into where just the faceplate would pop off. Like the massive electronics would stay, but it would be rendered non-functional, and you would just pull the. Am I right about that? You could.
You're exactly correct. Later on, that was like the 3rd car stereo installed, and exactly the faceplate would pop off.
That was the natural evolution, yes. Now it just doesn't really happen that much anymore. I never hear anybody getting their stereo stolen. Do you?
No, it's a very funny phenomenon. It's all about catalytic converters, apparently.
That's right.
It's all about the catalytic converter.
And it's all the rage. It's the platinum in those, right? Is that what they're going after?
Yeah.
That seems like a lot of work. You are really under a vehicle and sawing things out. I guess you get good at it after a while, but it seems like there's easier way to make a buck.
I miss the days of the stereo. While I don't have, nor would I probably spend the funds involved for some of these home stereos, but it was so exciting as a kid, in addition to the car stereos, buying components for your home stereo.
Yeah.
That's it.
Oh.
No, anyway, again, with equal excitement as the car stereos, I remember being as excited to listen to it as I was to smell it. There's nothing more exciting than the smell of fresh electronics. Are you with me, Rich?
I am completely with you. I can't explain it. I don't know what materials are being used, but yes.
Man, there's nothing better than the burning in some new electronics.
That reminds me of a story. This is something I've regretted my whole life. It's not that big a deal, but I was, 10, 11, 12 years old or something like that. And, boom boxes were kind of coming out back then. And I definitely wanted one. I remember asking one for Christmas. And this is burned in my memory. It's just feeling so badly. I remember being in my kitchen and talking to my mother or father. And I referenced it yet again. And I said something like, not those stupid ones with one speaker. It's got to have 2 stereo speakers. And I saw my mother and father look at each other. I'm like, oh, crap. They just bought one of those. And then Christmas Day came and I had the 2-speaker boombox.
Oh, nice. And your parents had a good story to share with each other.
The stupid, rotten, spoiled kid. Yeah, that's what the story was. But
yeah,
they came through and I had a proper stereo boombox and loved it for years. I had it forever. I loved that thing.
Oh, man. Mom and Dad for the win.
Yes.
First, you'd save up for the boombox, and then you would save up enough money to go eventually buy batteries for it. Because it was
you had to go shovel a bunch of driveways to get all those D cells.
It would take you half the winter.
It would.
It was the box or the boombox itself would probably weigh about 20 pounds, and then the 8D batteries would be like another 17 pounds. You wouldn't dare rewind your cassette. You would wait till you got plugged in somewhere before you start rewinding, because you were not going to waste all that battery power on a rewind.
That's exactly right. That juice is not going to something as utilitarian as a rewind.
No way. Nope. I wish I still kept mine, my first boombox. It'd be kind of fun to have on display somewhere, especially for my kids. They get a kick out of some of that stuff.
Yeah, that nostalgia is fun, but at some point you're like, why do I keep carrying this around? But now it's just like it's an article of history at this point.
We talk about the Beatles a lot. Well, I talk about the Beatles a lot, and as you know, I don't speak favorably, and it's unfair. And I think about this daily, and today it occurred to me that I shouldn't be so harsh on the Beatles, and I should really be more harsh on the fans of the Beatles, because the Beatles didn't do anything other than write many hit songs. But I thought about it, and I think I'm better able to articulate my reasoning behind all this. And I'm about to share that with you, Rich, if that's all right.
Yes, please.
So I think what bothers me most is the people that say, oh my God, the Beatles are the best band ever. I'm going to start a band. We're only going to play Beatles music. I love the Beatles. There's no band better than the Beatles. And I think what happens is I'm more frustrated at the fact that they're not allowing themselves to listen to some of the other thousands and thousands of musicians and bands out there that are also excellent musicians, who are fantastic songwriters, who have released a lot of hit songs as well. I think I'm shifting my frustration towards the fans and not the poor Beatles.
Yeah, I want to.
It's a moment of maturity for me, I think.
I want to jump off on that. I am a huge fan of the Beatles, but you're making a great point, and it's very frustrating. And I hear it all the time where people are like, oh, all the new music is terrible, blah blah blah. Music was. That's just silly. And I had a realization recently. I got out to my friend Lance. He said, "Hey, my neighbor is playing on Wednesday. I've already bought tickets. You want to go?" I'm like, your neighbor? Really? Your neighbor? Turns out it was at the famed Cafe Lena in downtown Saratoga. It's very famous. And Bob Dylan played there back in the day. And we went and saw his neighbor. It was actually from New York City, but she summers up here in Saratoga. And she was delightful. And she was entertaining. Her songs were great. Her backing band, guitar, bass, and drums were phenomenal. It was all music. There was no covers. I don't think there was any covers. It was her stuff. And this reminded me of exactly what you're saying. There is amazing music all around you. You have to do a little bit of work to go hear some of it. And that's also one of the things I like about the streaming services. If you tap into a radio per se, and it delivers the algorithms deliver you like, hey, if you like this, you might like this too. And I've stumbled onto a bunch of artists that way that I never would have found without technology suggesting you might like this too. So you're exactly right. An open mind is very, very important, and there is a lot of great creativity and music being created everywhere. I'd like to credit that woman. I can't remember her name at the moment. She was very good.
Yeah, there is. There's so much out there, and it's so much easier to get access to it now. It's literally at your fingertips. You don't even have to leave the house and hear it or see it by accident.
I'm trying to think of a way to work Christopher Walken into this conversation.
Yeah,
I got
Christopher
nothing.
Walken. It's funny. I write notes down, and at the time, I do a lot of abbreviating with great confidence that I'll recall what it was I was taking a note on. And I just glanced down, and I saw something here. And this is the note. Rich, do you ever get tired of eating? I have no idea what it was in reference to or what I was feeling. That was one note that I wanted to.
I think I need a little more context because I'm not sure how to answer that.
It was very important at the time because I went through the trouble to open up this application on my phone, put a new line number in, and write that question down.
Not something I'm wrestling with, actually, no.
You don't struggle with forcing yourself, coming up with the will to even eat. I ate 4 hours ago. I can't do it again.
It's another meal already?
It's just, someone's even making it for me, and I can't be bothered. All right, so we'll wrap it up.
I think I am good to go.
All right. Awesome.
No
dude.
fancy lighting this week.
No, just straight old, regular, incandescent.
And I'm back to a black shirt, so.
Oh, my goodness. Are we still on camera? Rich.
What do we got?
Look at this.
Oh,
I've
look
just
at that.
been handed food.
You're not tired of eating, are you?
I am not tired of eating at all. It is some sort of grilled chicken Caesar wrap.
Holy moly.
With ranch. Oh, it's ranch. Grilled chicken, ranch. Wow, who's luckier than me?
Can Nancy pop in and wave and say a quick hello?
No, she left already. Can you
Oh.
believe it? I tried to get her
I
in.
never get to see her.
She went upstairs. She's upstairs.
It's
I'll
okay.
call her down.
That's awesome.
All right, dude. Have a good night.
All sounds good. Well, enjoy your Caesar chicken grilled
Chicken
ranch
Something
thing.
with ranch.
Yeah.
Something with chips on the side, but it's good. Looks good.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Go on, smash that like button.